6 weeks ago, I was sitting right here with a sheet of paper in my hand. It was a registration form for today's contest. As I sat there and stared at that piece of paper, I heard voices. Voices in my mind talking to me. One of them telling me to go ahead and register for this contest. The other coming up with all kinds of reasons why I shouldn't. Have you had this kind of an experience where you have voices inside you when you're trying to make a simple decision in life? The problem, ladies and gentlemen, is not the inner dialogue. The problem is that most people get so stuck in that internal dialogue that they forget to take that first step. People who do something meaningful in life, however, know exactly the importance of that first step. Now, to contest check, respected judges, fellow Toastmasters, and dear guests, what do you think is the #1 reason we don't take that first step? What do you think? I'm expecting some answers.
Fear.
Absolutely right. Head on. Another one, good one. Fear, in my opinion, is the #1. All of us have experienced fear at some point or the other. I experienced it, in fact, when I stood up from that chair and walked up to here. Let's talk about that for a minute. You know, we all have heard this, that public speaking has been rated the #1 fear above even the fear of death. Fear of death. Now, the fact is, this statistic is based on a research done around 40 years ago. Now, it is quite a bit of an exaggeration for me. Now, I don't doubt that most people would rather sit in that audience rather than come up here and deliver a speech. Yeah, but I haven't come across anyone who tells me, you know what, I'm happy to stand in front of a gun rather than stand in front of an audience. Now, fear is not really a bad thing. Sometimes you do need fear. If you're standing in the street and you see a Spanish bull, 1,000 pounds, coming towards you, you're not going to pretend to be fearless. You're going to run for your life. But that's not the kind of fear we are talking about here. The fear I'm talking about is psychological. And psychological fear does not pose any immediate danger. Now, I remember I was talking to my friend of mine about this a few days ago, and he said, you know, Vipin, my problem is not fear. I was born fearless. I'm like, great. My problem is, I want to do things, but, and he went on to give me a bunch of reasons why he was doing what he wanted to do, which gave me the second reason why people don't take that first step. Our butts. No, I'm not talking about butts being heavy to get up and take that first step. I'm talking about excuses. But, ladies and gentlemen, is an argument for our limitations. And when you fight for your limitations, guess what? You get to keep them. As a matter of fact, coming up with excuses is now registered in the medical journal as an official disease. It's called excusitis. How do you know if you've got excusitis? For starters, you are absolutely brilliant and polished with coming up with excuses and stories. Second, you make the stories stunningly believable, not just for others, but even yourself. How many of you here in this room know somebody who's got this disease? How many of you actually have this disease? Excellent. As you see, my hand is up as well. I was a victim of this disease. Back in March 2013, I had this fantastic opportunity to write my own book. Now, you have to know this. I had a big dream of writing a book. However, when the opportunity presented itself, my butt came in the way. I said, I want to write that book, but I don't have the time to read a book, let alone write one. Eventually, I did go on and I wrote that book, and I did publish it in last year, January 2014. Yeah? I'm expecting an applause now. One thing that I learned during that journey was the importance of that first step. And I learned some simple truths about life. I learned what it takes for you to take that first step. And that is simply to take action. I like Susan Jeffler's book title. It says, face your fears and do it anyway. Courage, ladies and gentlemen, is not the absence of fear. It is our ability to take action. So go on, just go and do it. Don't stop yourself. You don't have to think too much before you take that first step. The next thing that you have to do is to get your butts out of the way. You don't have to know everything before you get started. You don't have to know all the answers. If you don't know something, just Google it, for heaven's sake. Google gives you all the answers these days. It's just the other day I was actually accidentally in a forum which was discussing how to kill your mother-in-law without knowing. My wife decided why I was there. The point being, you need to take that first step and move ahead. 6 weeks ago, ladies and gentlemen, I had a sheet of paper in my hand and a question in my mind. Should I or shouldn't I? I decided I should. I took my first step. It doesn't matter what it is that you want to do in your life. Go ahead and take your first step. If you are a Toastmasters, if you are a guest, go on and become a member. If you become a member, go ahead and do your icebreaker. Life is too short to stop it. Excuses. If you ever find yourself stopping yourself and you hear that inner voice saying, don't do that, remember what the famous Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu once said. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with that single step. One step.